Imagine waking up one morning. You feel wrong. And you realize your entire identity, maybe your whole sense of worth, it's just evaporated. Not because you did anything wrong, not some moral failing, but just because your ability to produce, your economic contribution, that's vanished.
It's a deeply unsettling thought, isn't it? What defines you then in the eyes of the world, maybe even your own family?
Exactly. And it's more than just a thought experiment, right? It kind of digs into something quite fundamental about how we often operate.
It really does. This idea that who you are, your actual place in society, your maybe intrinsic value, it might be completely tied up with your economic output. It's something a lot of us perhaps don't always consciously confront.
Absolutely. And that unsettling idea, that's precisely where we're diving in today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah, welcome.
We're the show where we sift through sources, articles, research, notes, the original text itself, to pull out the key insights and maybe connect some dots you hadn't thought about.
The goal is always to get you feeling well-informed, maybe even a little surprised.
Today, we're taking that deep dive into Franz Kafka's masterpiece, The Metamorphosis, which is, well, deeply unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, on the surface, it's this bizarre, almost, grotesque story.
Yeah.
A man turns into a giant insect. It sounds fantastical.
Right. You almost don't know whether to laugh or recoil.
Exactly. But under that surreal, almost darkly comic premise, there's this incredibly powerful and frankly chilling commentary on how society values people.
Yeah.
It's much, much more than just a weird tale.
That's it. And for this deep dive, we're going to look at the metamorphosis through a really specific lens. We're using a sociological and Marxist perspective.
Okay.
So that means we'll be focusing hard on themes like labor, alienation, class struggle, all that good stuff.
Right.
We'll be digging into how Gregor Samsa's value to his boss, crucially to his own family, seems completely, inextricably tied to his ability to work, to bring home the paycheck.
And his transformation then isn't just this physical horror show. From this angle, it becomes this sudden, stark event that just rips away the facade and exposes the brutal economic realities that are often propping up human relationships, even identity itself.
Yes. Our goal here is to unpack the why behind Gregor's awful situation. Why does this happen? What does it reveal?
We want to explore how Kafka uses this story to critique what you might call the dehumanizing effects of a capitalist system. And importantly, draw some lines, maybe some connections that might make you think a bit differently about your own place or how we see others within this big economic machine we're all part of.
Because honestly, from that very first sentence, one morning, as Gregor Samsa was waking up from anxious dreams, he discovered that in bed he had been changed into a monstrous verminous bug.
Bam!
Right there. Just throws you in.
It throws you in, and it immediately challenges everything we assume about being human in a world where, let's face it, your worth so often feels like it is your net worth, or at least your productivity.
Utility over humanity. It's a powerful starting point.
So let's really unpack this. Where do we start?
Well, I think the best place to start to really grasp the shock of the metamorphosis is to understand the life he had before he became, a bug.
Okay, the before picture.
Exactly. Because when we look at Gregor Samsa through this sociological Marxist lens, what we see is essentially a human machine. He's basically a tool of production, a cog.
It's quite a stark image, isn't it? And Kafka lays it out so quickly. Gregor's life before the change, it's just dripping with this profound sense of alienated labor.
Totally.
He thinks to himself, what a demanding job I've chosen, day in, day out on the road. It's not just demanding. He lists the specifics, the toll it takes.
Right, he talks about the stresses of trade being much greater than the work going on at head office. It's not just the work itself, it's everything around it.
Yeah, the problems of traveling, the worries about train connections, the irregular bad food, and crucially, these temporary and constantly changing human relationships which never come from the heart. Ugh.
That description, it's not just him complaining about a tough job, though it is tough. It's almost a textbook illustration of what Marx called alienated labor.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. Alienated labor. What does that really mean for Gregor?
Well, think about it. He doesn't own the cloth samples he sells, right? He has no control over the process, the constant travel, the rigid schedule. He's alienated from the product of his labor. He's alienated from the process itself, the act of working.
Okay, that makes sense. It's just drudgery he has to endure.
Exactly. And then there is alienation from what Marxists call our species being.
Species being. That sounds important. Explain that.
It's this idea that humans have a unique potential for creative, meaningful work. work that expresses who we are, that allows us to develop ourselves. It should be fulfilling, right? A realization of our potential.
Right. Work is something more than just punching a clock.
Precisely. But Gregor's job, it strips all that away. It's repetitive, soul-crushing. He's not creating anything meaningful. He's just enduring. He's reduced to a function, a means to an end, earning money, not an end in himself.
So it's actually diminishing him, preventing him from being fully human, in a way.
That's the core idea, yes. And crucially, this also leads to alienation from other human beings. His interactions are shallow, purely transactional. Customers are just targets. Colleagues are distant. There's no real connection, just the function of the job. He's isolated.
Wow. So it's not just unhappiness, it's a kind of fundamental disconnection caused by the nature of his work in this system. That's heavy.
It is. And you feel this simmering resentment just beneath the surface in his thoughts, especially about his boss.
Oh, yeah. He thinks, like, if I were to try that with my boss, I'd be thrown out on the spot. That says so much about the power dynamic.
It lays it bare. It's pure class struggle right there. The boss holds all the power. Gregor fantasizes about telling him off, but the reality is immediate dismissal.
Kafka even gives us that detail about the boss sitting up at the desk talking down to the employee from way up there. It's literally a visual hierarchy.
It is. And remember the boss having trouble hearing. Gregor mentions it. You can read that metaphorically, can't you?
Like he's unwilling to listen.
Exactly. Unwilling or just structurally unable to hear the concerns, the humanity of his employees. He only hears the language of business, of deadlines, of profit. It shows that one-way power flow perfectly.
And this whole setup, it's not like Gregor chose this life out of passion. His motivation is starkly economic, and it's tied to his family.
Absolutely central. He says it outright. If I didn't hold back for my parents' sake, I would quit ages ago. His entire existence is consumed by paying off this family debt to his boss.
Which is another layer of control, isn't it? The debt ties him not just to the job, but to the boss personally.
Precisely. And he calculates it. Once I've got together the money to pay off the parents' debt to him, that should take another 5 or 6 years. I'll do it for sure. That'll make the big break.
5 or 6 years. That's an eternity in that kind of misery. His personal freedom, his big break, is completely dependent on getting out of debt. Until then, he's trapped.
His entire value system has been shaped by this. Look at his pride in his perfect attendance. 5 years, never sick once.
Right. The thought of even calling in sick is extremely embarrassing and suspicious.
It shows how deeply he's internalized the pressure. To be valuable, you must be constantly reliably productive. Any deviation is suspect. The system has conditioned him to see himself purely as an asset.
It's almost like he doesn't feel he has the right to be sick, to be human in that way.
Pretty much. His identity is his reliability as a provider.
And amongst all this grinding routine, this economic focus, there's that one little detail that feels different, the picture.
Yes. The fur woman picture.
This cutout from a magazine, a woman in furs, in this little frame he made. What do we make of that through this lens?
It's poignant, isn't it? It feels like this tiny, almost pathetic symbol of something else. Something beyond work, beyond utility. Maybe beauty, luxury, desire, something completely outside his commodified life.
A little crack where some personality, some personal longing shows through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A very small, fragile crack. A hint of a human desire for something more than just function, something almost unattainable in his current reality. It makes him feel a bit more human, just for a second.
And we should remember, before the change, he did feel pride in providing for his family. He got them this beautiful apartment, gave them a quiet life.
Yes, that's important. His role as provider was his source of identity and pride, however crushing the job was. It established the economic foundation of their family life with him as the indispensable center.
He even had plans beyond just basic provision, right? For his sister, Greet.
The secret plan to send her to the conservatory. That's fascinating from a sociological angle.
How so?
Well, it's like he wants to invest in her cultural capital, give her access to art, to refinement, something beyond their current social standing. It's aspirational.
Trying to lift the family up, not just sustain them.
But crucially, that dream, her potential escape into art, is entirely dependent on his continued economic output. His labor fuels that possibility.
And the parents, they weren't keen, were they?
No, Kafka notes they never listened to these innocent expectations with pleasure. They seem focused on the immediate, practical, economic reality. Maybe they sense how fragile that dream is, or maybe they just don't value cultural pursuits as highly as financial security. Their concerns are more grounded.
So, okay, we have Gregor, alienated worker, trapped by debt, sacrificing his species being for his family's economic security, finding his sole pride in being the provider. He's a tool, essentially.
A tool who dreams of sending his sister to study music, yeah.
And then, boom, he wakes up a bug. And the truly startling thing, as you said, isn't the horror of the transformation itself initially.
It's the schedule. It's the job.
Right. It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? This metamorphosis, seen sociologically, it just throws that link between identity and economic function into such sharp relief.
He wakes up as this monstrous verminous bug.
Yeah.
And your first instinct as a reader is, existential dread, panic, body horror.
Yeah, how do I fix this?
But Gregor, his first thought is about the demanding job and missing his 5 a.m. train. He immediately thinks there was no avoiding a blow-up with the boss.
It's almost darkly funny, but it completely shows how his primary identity, his core anxiety, is wrapped up in being a worker. The physical form is almost secondary to the professional obligation at that moment.
Absolutely. His deepest fear remains economic. And the story just slams that point home with the arrival of the manager, the chief clerk.
So quickly, too.
Swiftly, relentlessly. He embodies the system's demands. He's not there asking, Gregor, are you okay? What happened? No. He's there about Gregor's commercial duties, his absence.
He's like a personification of the firm's bottom line showing up at the door.
Exactly. He's not just a character. He's a symbol of capital's unyielding, unempathetic demands.
Yeah.
The system itself knocking.
And the suspicion starts immediately, even before they see him. The manager's speech through the door.
Wow. It's loaded, isn't it? Accusations flying, linking the abscess to the greatest suspicion, calling Gregor pig-headed.
And that line, your productivity has also been very unsatisfactory recently. Even before this, he was potentially on thin ice.
Right. And mentioning the collection of cash entrusted to you, that immediately plants the seed of doubt. Is he maybe stealing? Is that why he's not coming out?
So he's already being framed as defective, as potentially dishonest, a problem for the company, not a person in crisis. His value is plummeting before they even know what's wrong.
And the family's reaction. It mirrors that economic panic perfectly.
They're not screaming for a doctor, are they? Not initially.
No. Their first concern is the job, the income. The mother's pleading with the manager. The young man has nothing in his head except business. She's trying to salvage his economic value, vouch for his utility.
Defending his commitment as a worker, not him as a son who might be ill or worse.
And the father shouting for a locksmith. Not a doctor, a locksmith.
That detail is just, it says everything. Get the door open. Get him to work. Explain this accent. Save the income stream. The immediate reaction is transactional.
It really emphasizes that practical, almost cold response to the crisis. Fix the economic problem first.
And poor Gregor, even as a giant bug, he's still trying to perform his role.
He is. He's trying to talk, to reassure them, promising to open the door, saying things like, I'm happy to work, traveling is exhausting, but I couldn't live without it.
Still trying to be the good employee, appealing to his earlier achievements, his track record.
It shows how deeply ingrained it is. His whole self-worth is tied to that role. He literally can't conceive of himself outside of being a productive worker, even now.
But then comes that moment, the voice.
Ah, yes. The point of no return, socially speaking. The manager hears Gregor's attempts to speak this garbled, inhuman sound and declares, that was an animal's voice.
And that's it, isn't it?
That's pretty much it. In that instant, his transformation is complete in the eyes of the outside world, the world of commerce and society. His ability to communicate, to assert his humanity, and therefore his economic viability, it's just gone. He's crossed a line.
He's no longer just Gregor Samsa, absent employee. He's an animal. Something other.
Exactly. Script of his voice, literally and metaphorically.
And the father's reaction immediately after that revelation is so violent, so symbolic.
Using the manager's cane, the symbol of the firm's authority and a newspaper, to physically drive Gregor back.
Forcing him out of the shared space, back into his room.
It's an act of control, pushing the now economically useless, physically repulsive thing back into confinement. His room becomes his prison, mirroring his new status. Valueless, excluded.
And those ugly blotches left on the white door where he scraped himself.
Yeah, physical marks of his exclusion. He's literally scarred, marked as undesirable, cast out from the productive, acceptable household.
Any shred of hope that he could still somehow function in their world, contribute, connect, it's just violently stamped out right there.
It is. And this brutal expulsion sets the scene for the next phase. The family's own economic adjustment and the slow, steady erasure of Gregor himself.
Right. So Gregor is now confined, deemed non-human, economically useless. The story then shifts focus quite a bit to how the family adapts, doesn't it?
It does, and this is where the sociological and Marxist reading becomes incredibly powerful, especially with the unveiling of the family's true financial situation.
Ah, the hidden capital.
Ah,
This part is genuinely shocking.
it really is. Gregor, trapped in his room, overhears his father explaining their finances. And it turns out there was a fortune, although a very small one, available from the old times.
Okay, so they weren't completely penniless to begin with.
Not completely. But the bigger bombshell is that the money which Gregor had brought home every month had not been completely spent and had grown into a small capital amount.
Hold on, so all that time Gregor was killing himself, thinking he was solely responsible for paying off this huge debt and keeping them afloat? They were actually saving his money, accumulating capital.
That's exactly what the text reveals. His belief that they were utterly destitute, totally dependent on him, wasn't the full picture. They were building a nest egg from his earnings.
Wow, that just reframes everything. His sacrifice wasn't just for survival, it was actively building their financial security, possibly beyond what he even realized. It feels exploitative almost.
You could certainly argue that. The necessity driving his alienated labor wasn't quite as absolute as he, and perhaps the reader, initially believed. There's a colder calculation beneath the surface.
And Gregor's reaction when he overhears this, it's heartbreaking.
He nodded eagerly, rejoicing over this unanticipated foresight and frugality.
Rejoicing, the irony is just crushing. He's happy for them, even though their foresight was built on his back, on the misery of the job he hated, the debt that imprisoned him.
He still identifies completely with the family's economic well-being, even when learning that his understanding of it was flawed, and arguably that his labor was being used in ways he didn't fully grasp.
So this revelation comes out, and
Right.
what happens next? The family dynamic must shift dramatically.
Immediately. With Gregor unable to provide, the family has to mobilize. They all have to enter the labor market now.
Starting with the father.
Yes, the father, who hadn't worked for 5 years, who'd put on a good deal of fat, he gets a job. And Kafka gives us this striking image. He wears a tight-fitting blue uniform with gold buttons, like the ones servants wear in a banking company.
A uniform, a symbol of his new role in the machine. It's almost like he's taken Gregor's place, but maybe a step down the ladder.
It seems that way. And he clings to this new identity, wearing the uniform even at home. It signifies his return to being a productive member, his reclaimed economic value.
And the mother.
She starts working too, sewing fine undergarments for a fashion shop. Piecework, likely low paid, but it's a direct contribution to the household income. No longer just managing the home, but actively earning.
This isn't choice. It's pure necessity driving them back into the workforce.
Absolutely. And then there's Greet. This is a huge shift for her.
The conservatory dream is gone.
Completely abandoned. She gets a job as a salesgirl and starts studying stenography and French. Why? To obtain a better position.
Practical skills, marketable skills.
Exactly. Cultural capital is out. Economic capital is in. Her aspirations are now entirely shaped by the demands of the labor market, just like Gregor's were. Art is a luxury they can no longer afford, intellectually or financially.
The economic pressure cooker forces everyone into line, forces them to commodify themselves.
And even their possessions. They sell off various pieces of family jewelry, getting whatever prices they had fetched. Sentimental value takes a backseat to cash value.
Everything becomes transactional, even their home.
Yes, the apartment Gregor was so proud of finding for them. Now it's seen as too big for their present means. It's an economic liability, not a home. Its value is purely practical, judged by cost versus income.
So as the family gears up economically, finding new ways to produce value, what happens to Gregor, the non-producer?
His significance just plummets,
Oh.
and his physical and emotional neglect becomes horrifying.
The care really drops off, doesn't it? Greet, who seemed to care initially.
She still brings food, but very quickly, and she's quite indifferent whether he eats it. Then she just sweeps the leftovers out with one sweep of her broom.
Like cleaning up after a pet, or worse. He's an inconvenience, a mess to be managed.
Exactly. The brotherly bond is dissolving rapidly under the economic strain and the physical repulsion.
And then there's the cleaning woman. She's an interesting figure.
She is. This huge, bony cleaning woman. She has no real horror of Gregor, which is almost worse, in a way,
How so?
because she just treats him like
Yeah.
vermin,
Yeah.
dung beetle. She's purely transactional. She doesn't care for him. She barely cleans his room. She even threatens him with a chair. This goes no further, all right.
It shows his complete powerlessness. He has no status, no human regard left. He's just a bug she has to occasionally deal with.
His loss of economic function translates directly into a loss of basic human dignity and respect, even from someone who is essentially performing a service for the family.
And his room becomes, well, not his room anymore.
It becomes a dumping ground. They start storing things which they couldn't put anywhere else in there, even ashes in the garbage pail from the kitchen.
Literally treating his space, and by extension him, as refuse. Junk storage. His last bit of personal space is violated, filled with trash.
It's a physical manifestation of his symbolic status within the family. Useless clutter.
Then the lodgers arrive. That feels like another turning point.
A huge one. These 3 solemn gentlemen move in, taking over the living room. They represent a new economic order within the house itself.
They become the new center of gravity.
Pretty much. The family caters to them, and the lodgers are obsessed with tidiness, complaining about anything useless or shoddy. It feels like a direct commentary on Gregor's presence.
He's the ultimate useless or shoddy thing in the apartment.
Exactly. They consume the family's resources, their food, their attention. They've literally replaced Gregor at the economic heart of the household. They are the new providers, in a sense, through their rent.
And it's in this context, with the lodgers there, that Gregor makes his last tragic attempt at connection.
Through Greet's violin playing. He's drawn out by the music, seeing it as the way to the unknown nourishment he craved. Something beyond the physical.
A spiritual or aesthetic need.
Perhaps. He even thinks about his old plan, sending her to the conservatory. He's clinging to that past ideal where his work could support something beautiful.
But the timing is terrible.
Awful. He gets caught by the lodgers while having this moment of aesthetic appreciation. And their reaction. They're disappointed by the music, irritated.
It's not entertaining enough for them.
Apparently not. It highlights this clash. Gregor seeking profound connection through art, the lodgers viewing it as subpar consumer product. Economic reality, in the form of the paying lodgers' dissatisfaction, crushes Gregor's fragile hope for aesthetic or emotional connection.
That's the final rejection, almost. His last link to his previous life, his aspirations for greed, undermined by the purely transactional view of the new economic masters of the house.
He's not just an insect, not just a burden. He's now actively interfering with the family's new economic arrangement by offending the lodgers. His presence is becoming untenable.
Which leads us, inevitably, to the final section, the disposal. Which, from this perspective, feels less like a family tragedy and more like an economic decision.
It's chillingly pragmatic, yes. The last vestiges of emotional connection are stripped away, revealing the cold calculus underneath.
And it's Greet, his sister, who delivers the final verdict.
Her ultimatum is brutal. I will not utter my brother's name in front of this monster, she says, and thus I say only that we must try to get rid of it.
Monster. Not even him anymore. The dehumanization is complete.
He's no longer family, he's an obstacle, a problem to be solved. The monstrous appearance becomes the final justification for severing all ties.
And her reasoning is purely economic, isn't it?
Entirely. She says, it is killing you both. I see it coming. When people have to work as hard as we all do, they cannot also tolerate this endless torment at home. Gregor is framed explicitly as hindering their ability to work to survive.
He's a drain on their energy, their resources.
Worse than that, he's a direct threat. He drives away the lodgers. She argues he'll take over the entire apartment, leave them to spend the night in the alley. His existence is presented as fundamentally incompatible with their economic stability. He's a liability that could ruin them.
And the father's reaction?
Immediate agreement. She is right in 1,000 ways. The father, now reestablished as a worker, a provider, however humble, instantly aligns with Greet's ruthless, practical assessment. The economic logic is undeniable to him now.
No debate, no agonizing, just, yes, she's right. He has to go.
Any lingering sentimentality is gone. Even when the father briefly wonders, if only he understood us, then perhaps some compromise would be possible.
Greet shuts that down immediately.
Instantly. Because Gregor can't communicate, can't contribute, can't participate in their economic reality, therefore he has no bargaining power. Compromise impossible. Empathy is irrelevant. Practicality rules.
And this leads to Gritsy's truly terrifying redefinition of what Gregor even means.
This is perhaps the most profound sociological statement in the whole story. She says, essentially, we have to get rid of the idea that this is Gregor.
Because
If it were Gregor, she argues, he would have long ago realized that a communal life among human beings is not possible with such an animal and would have gone away voluntarily.
Wow. So being Gregor means understanding your social and economic function and removing yourself if you can no longer fulfill it.
Precisely. Then we would not have a brother, but we could go on living and honor his memory. His human identity, his very Gregorness, is contingent on his ability to function within the social and economic structure.
Yeah.
If he can't, he's not Gregor. He's just dead.
That is bone-chilling. Humanity isn't inherent, it's granted based on utility.
That's the brutal logic she presents. And the most tragic part, Gregor accepts it.
He overhears this, right?
He does. And Kafka writes that Gregor's own thought that he had to disappear was, if possible, even more decisive than his sister's.
He internalizes their judgment. He agrees he's worthless, that he should cease to exist.
Yes. His individual will collapses under the weight of the collective verdict, the economic verdict. He surrenders to the system's logic that declared him redundant.
It's horrifying. He accepts his own erasure.
And his death is described almost peacefully. Not a struggle, but this release into empty and peaceful reflection.
Like liberation.
Perhaps liberation from the burden of being a burden? Liberation from his commodified, then devalued existence? Peace comes only when he is no longer an economic problem.
And the family's reaction after he dies, it confirms everything, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The cleaning woman finds the body, just dismisses it. It's rubbish, something to be thrown out. Final confirmation of his object status.
And Mr. Samsa.
Now we can give thanks to God?
Yeah.
Pure, unadulterated relief. His death isn't a tragedy. It's a blessing, a divine intervention that lifts their economic burden.
Pragmatism completely trumps grief.
Completely. And they immediately embrace their future prospects, which are suddenly not at all bad because all three had employment.
Time to move on. Literally. They decide the greatest improvement would be to move, to change dwellings.
Escape the place, escape the memory, escape the economic drag Gregor represented.
And Grig herself transforms again.
Yes. She had blossomed recently into a beautiful and voluptuous young woman. Released from the burden of caring for Gregor, now a productive worker herself.
She becomes marriageable, a potentially valuable asset in a different economic transaction.
The implication is certainly there. Her physical vitality is noted, linked to her potential to find a good, honest man, securing her and perhaps the family's future through a different kind of economic arrangement. She's ready for the next stage of societal integration.
And that final scene, the tram ride out of the city.
Taking the electric tram into the open air outside the city is such a powerful symbol of liberation.
Liberation from Gregor.
Yes. Escaping the confinement, the burden, the old things, they are moving towards a new, economically viable future built on the foundation of having shed their unproductive member. It's a fresh start, unburdened.
It's a stark ending. No sentimentality, just forward motion into economic recovery.
Seen through this lens, it's incredibly consistent, incredibly bleak, but logically coherent within its own framework.
So looking back at this deep dive, the Metamorphosis, viewed sociologically, viewed through that Marxist lens, it's so much more than just a weird story.
It's a profound, deeply unsettling critique, isn't it? About how certain societies, particularly capitalist ones, can end up quantifying human worth almost entirely by economic contribution.
Gregor's story becomes this kind of horrifying mirror, reflecting the pressures of work, the alienation it causes.
And the terrifying efficiency with which individuals could be devalued, dehumanized, and ultimately discarded when their economic utility disappears.
It really forces you, the listener, to ask some uncomfortable questions, doesn't it? Like, how much of my own identity, my sense of self-worth, is tangled up with my job, my income, my productivity?
And what happens if that's threatened or removed through illness or job loss or just aging? How do we as a society view people who can't produce in the conventional sense? Are they still seen as fully human, inherently valuable?
Kafka really holds her feet to the fire on that one. This uncomfortable possibility that in a world obsessed with output, with efficiency, our basic humanity can easily become secondary to our economic function.
And the Samsa family's journey, their chilling pragmatism. It's disturbing because it reflects, perhaps, a logic that can take hold when economic survival feels paramount. How quickly love, duty, connection can fray under that kind of pressure.
It makes you wonder if Kafka wrote this today, with our gig economy, corporate burnout, pressures of modern life, how different would it really be?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? The core anxiety about human worth versus economic worth. It feels depressingly timeless.
So what kind of society are we building if the answer to an economic burden, a person who can no longer contribute, is ultimately, as Greet says, it must be gotten rid of?
How do we fight against reducing human value to just a line item on a balance sheet? And what does it mean for us personally to value the parts of ourselves and others that exist completely outside of productivity, the parts that remain even when the ability to do is gone?
That's the challenge Kafka leaves us wrestling with, isn't it? Long after the tram carries the Samsas away.